Americans.
You might be wondering, why in the world is there a 30-minute countdown before the show starts? Well, we actually start live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, so this whole 30-minute countdown is a chance for YouTube and Rumble to send out their alerts and notifications, so we encourage you to gather up and hang out with everyone in the chat room. So every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time is when we do this show live. You can join us for the countdown if you like, or just set your clock and reminder that at 4 p.m. Eastern is when we go live. You can also make sure you subscribe and turn on that bell notification, so hopefully you will get a notification.
What do you have to say about dictators of countries like Indonesia, who we sell weapons to, yet they are slaughtering people in East Timor? What do you have to say about Israel, who is slaughtering Palestinians, who impose martial law? What do you have to say about that? Those are our allies. Why do we sell weapons to these countries? Why do we support them? Why do we bomb Iraq when it commits similar problems?
There are various examples of things that are not right in this world, and the United States is trying. I really am surprised that people feel that it is necessary to defend the rights of Saddam Hussein, when what we ought to be thinking about is how to make sure that he does not use weapons of mass destruction.
Who are shouting, just a moment. I'm not defending him in the least. What I am saying is that there needs to be consistent application of U.S. foreign policy. We cannot support people who are committing the same violations because they are political allies. That is not acceptable. We cannot violate UN resolutions when it is convenient to us. You're not answering my question, Madam Albright.
You briefed the press, did you not, when you were there?
Well, I had several jobs. One of my jobs was that of analyst. I also was an interrogator and indeed briefed the press when we, the CIA, wanted to circulate disinformation on a particular issue. Disinformation is not necessarily a lie. It may be a half-truth. And we would pick out a journalist. I would go do the briefing and hope that he would put the information in print.
What was your percentage of success?
We were pretty successful in planning information of a rather rarefied nature. For instance, if we wanted to get across to the American public that the North Vietnamese were building up their force structure in South Vietnam, I would go to a journalist and advise him that in the past 6 months, X number of North Vietnamese forces had come down the Ho Chi Minh Trail system through southern Laos. Now, there is no way a journalist can check that information. That's data derived from radio intercepts, spy in the sky photography. So either he goes with the information or he doesn't, and ordinarily or usually the journalist would go with it because it looked like some kind of exclusive. Go after these gentlemen. I would be directed to cultivate them, to spend time with them at the Caravel Hotel or the Continental Hotel, to socialize with them, and slowly but surely to try to gain their confidence by dolloping out valid information which was true. And then I would drop into a conversation the data that we wanted to get across which might not be true. One piece of data, for instance, that we managed to plant in the New Yorker magazine had to do with a supposed North Vietnamese effort in 1973 to develop airfields along the border of South Vietnam. The reason we wanted to plant this information was that we were trying to persuade the U.S. Congress that Saigon should continue to get a great deal of aid, and that the North Vietnamese were the chief violators of the ceasefire accord. That was printed in the New Yorker magazine under the byline of Robert Chaplin, as indeed was a great deal of such information which we tried to circulate.
Frank, a two-part question. What were the objectives of or what was the objective of the CIA? What about the moral implications of what you were doing in feeding this information? Did the objective override the moral implications, moral problems?
Well, the objective of the agency in general is to generate intelligence and get it back to Washington, to get at the truth and make sure the policymakers understand it. When you plant disinformation, you are diverging from that objective, and I think probably in retrospect it was very counterproductive. I am, as an ex-CIA agent, opposed to the disinformation activities in which I was involved. I admit that I was involved, and I think it served no useful purpose. Propagandizing the American public or Congress is not the CIA's job. As to the morality of what the CIA was doing or that particular activity, the war was a very relative thing. It was a relativist environment, and morality seldom came into play when you were operating in the field. In my estimation, a CIA man should be amoral. That may sound pretty shocking to somebody, but what if my morality were that of a Nazi agent, if you will? You wouldn't want me to be your intelligence officer. Keep the morals out of intelligence. Keep the truth in, and stay away from disinformation.
It would have been more appropriate for Mr. Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, to address this House according to Article 144, an article which was specifically designed to debate violations of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, which is clearly the case with Mr. Trudeau. Then again, a Prime Minister who openly admires the Chinese basic dictatorship, who tramples on fundamental rights by persecuting and criminalizing his own citizens as terrorists just because they dared to stand up to his perverted concept of democracy, should not be allowed to speak in this House at all. Mr. Trudeau, you are a disgrace for any democracy. Please spare us your presence. Thank you.
Colleagues, but the answer to war is not more war, it's peace. And peace isn't delivered by the barrel of a gun, it's delivered by diplomacy, by dialogue. You can wish away your continent's history, but we share a continent with Russia. We will sit down with Russia. There will be a negotiated peace, and this organization should be promoting it earlier rather than delaying it and making sure that more Ukrainians die. Your feigning of sympathy rings hollow. It makes me sick, to be honest with you.
we become involved when disinformation poses a threat to the security of our country. It is when there's a connectivity to a threat to our country. It could be a threat, a connectivity to violence. And what this working group does, is precisely what I would think you would want it to do, which is to take a look at the work, the disinformation work that our department has done and ask the following questions. Do we have policies? Do we have guardrails? Do we have standards?
But here's the problem.
Ensure,
We can't even agree. We can't even agree what disinformation is. You can't even agree that it was disinformation, that the Russians fed information to the Steele dossier. If you can't agree to that, how are we ever going to come to an agreement on what is disinformation so you can police it on social media?
Senator, I have 2 points, if I may finish. Number one, that what this office, what this working group does, because it's not an office, what this working group does is ensure that there are guardrails, definitions, standards to make sure that the free speech rights, the civil rights, civil liberties, and privacy rights of individuals.
So do you think COVID disinformation threatens our national security?
And number two, if I may, Senator, and number two, is it your proposition that when the cartels spread disinformation with respect to our immigration policies to try to lure vulnerable migrants to our border illegally?
I think you've got no idea what disinformation is, and I don't think the government's capable of it. Do you know who the greatest propagator of disinformation in the history of the world is? The U.S. government. Are you familiar with McNamara, the Pentagon Papers? Are you familiar with George W. Bush and the weapons of mass destruction? Are you familiar with Iran-Contra? I mean, think of all the debates and disputes we've had over the last 50 years in our country. We work them out by debating them. We don't work them out by the government being the arbiter. I don't want you guardrails. I want you to have nothing to do with speech. You think we can't determine, speech by traffickers is disinformation? You think the American people are so stupid they need you to tell them what the truth is? You can't even admit what the truth is with the Steele dossier. I don't trust government to figure out what the truth is. Government is largely disseminating disinformation.
Hey everyone, just as a reminder, our show starts at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, just a few minutes from now, but I should remind you that we have a daily newsletter. It's totally free. Natalie and I work very hard on it every morning over our cup of coffee, putting the stories together that we think are important that the mainstream media is going to ignore. All you need to do is go to our website. It's just redacted.inc. Put in your email address. We won't ever sell your email to anybody. And then you'll receive a welcome email. And all you need to do is verify that email, and 7 a.m. Eastern Time is when we send out our daily newsletter. And it's about 5 or 10 minutes in length that you can read it over your cup of coffee. And like I said, we cover 4 or 5 of the big stories of the day, plus a couple of things you might have missed while you were sleeping. We try to have some fun with it, add a little humor into it. And again, it's a great way to start off your morning. But it's also a great way for us to stay connected with you as well, because we've been banned and blocked on some of these platforms before, where we haven't been allowed to post anything, not even a community post. So the only way for us to stay connected with you is through our newsletter. We were able to send out a newsletter and say, hey everyone, we're blocked for the next week, and let you know what was actually going on with our show. Anyway, go to redacted.inc and sign up for the free newsletter, and it'll be posted first thing in the morning over your cup of coffee.
This is a bit of an aside, but in terms of how you think about problem sets, when I was a cadet, what's the cadet motto at West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CI director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire We had entire training courses.
We had a good discussion on ensuring global energy security and adequate oil supplies to support global economic growth, and that will begin shortly. I'm doing all I can to increase the supply for the United States of America, which I expect to happen. The Saudis share that urgency, and based on our discussions today, I expect we'll see further steps in the coming weeks.
Are you worried about
One of the hopeful things that I've discovered is that nearly every war that has started in the past 50 years has been a result of media lies. The media could have stopped it if they had searched deep enough. If they hadn't reprinted government propaganda, they could have stopped it. But what does that mean? Well, that means basically populations don't like wars. And populations have to be fooled into wars. Populations don't willingly and with open eyes go into a war. So if we have a good media environment, then we'll also have a peaceful environment.
Killed a million people in Iraq.
That is a separate...
You killed a million people in Iraq. It's incredible that you have the brass neck to be sitting here now urging another Iraq war.
George,
after
if
what
I was
you've
still
already
in
done.
Parliament, I...
There can be no doubt that Saddam Hussein has biological weapons and the capability to rapidly produce more, many more. And he has the ability to dispense these lethal poisons and diseases in ways that can cause massive death and destruction. If biological weapons seem too terrible to contemplate, chemical weapons are equally chilling. UNMOVIC already laid out much of this, and it is documented for all of us to read in UNSCOM's 1999 report on the subject. If we consider just one category of missing weaponry, 6,500 bombs from the Iran-Iraq war, UNMOVIC says the amount of chemical agent in them would be in the order of 1,000 tons. These quantities of chemical weapons are now unaccounted for. Dr. Blick says, quipped that, quote, mustard gas is not marmalade. You are supposed to know what you did with it. We believe Saddam Hussein knows what he did with it, and he has not come clean with the international community. We have evidence these weapons existed. What we don't have is evidence from Iraq that they have been destroyed or where they are. That is what we are still waiting for.
Okay, inspection worth doing, everybody's agreed it's worth doing, and it gets stopped. Yes, sir. At that moment, we're an automatic pilot as far as you're concerned. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, I respect that. But now, it seems to me the Secretary of State might have a slightly different problem. Secretary of State might be sitting there and saying, now look over there on that side. Now, I remember so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, and the 12 people on this side, they're all the ones that said they didn't want to use force. Now, I'm going to have to go tell the president now that we should, or Secretary Cohen, unleash whatever it takes to get it done. And our military assessment is the same as the major's. The major's assessment is, privately held but publicly acknowledged later, that airstrikes alone aren't going to do this. Saddam's not going to cave on this. So, now here's the deal. I recommended the president have at it and let the chips fall where they may. A reasonable position for the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State to take. But I respectfully suggest, Major, I respectfully suggest they have a responsibility slightly above your pay grade. Slightly above your pay grade. To decide whether or not to take the nation to war alone. Or to take the nation to war partway. Or to take the nation to war halfway. That's a real tough decision. That's why they get paid the big bucks. That's why they get the limos and you don't. I mean this sincerely. I'm not trying to be flip. Because I think, and that's why I said at the outset, the reason why I'm glad you did what you did, we should come to our milk. We should make a decision. But in terms of whether the Secretary of State has no more to consider than you do as the arms inspector, you didn't get in, didn't get my job done, get me in. Period. You made the deal, right? That's the deal. A deal's a deal. Get me in. Scott Ritter, I'm ready to go. It's not how it works. Now, maybe it should work that way. But wouldn't you acknowledge that if you were President of the United States or the Secretary of State, you'd sit there and say, now, okay, old Scotty boy didn't get in. We said he should get in. We want him to get in. It's important that he does get in. They're not going to let him in, so what are we going to do now? We know that France and Russia aren't going to be with us. We're quite confident China's not. We've already run those traps. They're not there. We're not sure where the United States Senate is, but have at it, boys. Go get them. And by the way, Scott and the boys say air power's not enough. I think it's a legitimate debate, Major. I think it's a legitimate debate. But I don't think we should be putting it in the context of, you have somebody up there at state saying, look, how can we weasel out of this agreement? We want to let this guy out there hanging. We're not this. It's a very practical political decision. Same kind of decision General Powell made. Same kind of decision President Bush made. Every president, every Secretary of State has to do it. Like I said, they get paid more than you. Their job's a hell of a lot more complicated than yours. They may have made the wrong decision, and you brought it to light. We should address it. We should say straight up where we are, and we should do it. And for that, I thank you. But it's above your pay grade.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon, and one of the generals called me, and he said, sir, you got to come in and talk to me a sec. He says, we've made the decision we're going to war with Iraq. I said, we're going to war with Iraq? Why? He said, I don't know. He said, I guess they don't know what else to do. He said, I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we got a good military and we can take down governments. And he said, I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail. So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, are we still going to war with Iraq? And he said, oh, it's worse than that. He reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper. He said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
Hey everyone, Clayton here. The show is going to start at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I should remind you that we have a VIP community. It's our Redacted Rebel VIP community. Now, this show is totally free, what you're watching right now, right? You can subscribe here on YouTube and Rumble, totally free. But if you'd like to support independent journalism, we are run by you. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do this show. We wouldn't be able to hire the team that we have. We wouldn't be able to afford the servers that we have. We wouldn't be able to afford the reporters that we have, the team that we have. So you can support us by going to redacted.inc, and on the right side of your screen, you'll see a VIP community button. Just click that, and for the price of a cup of coffee once a month, you can support us. We put out exclusive content, early interviews that no one else will see, live streams just for our VIP Rebel community. So again, it's totally free to watch this show. But if you do want to support independent journalism, we would really appreciate it. Come on over to redacted.inc, click on that community button, and decide if you want to sign up or not. It's totally up to you. We thank you. And meanwhile, the show will start in just a few moments at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Whatever our hopes may be for the future, for reducing this threat or living with it, there is no escaping either the gravity or the totality of its challenge to our survival and to our security. A challenge that confronts us in unaccustomed ways in every sphere of human activity. This deadly challenge imposes upon our society two requirements of direct concern, both to the press and to the President. Two requirements that may seem almost contradictory in tone, but which must be reconciled and fulfilled if we are to meet this national peril. I refer first to the need for far greater public information, and second, to the need for far greater official secrecy. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
Welcome, everybody, into Redacted on this Wednesday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And we are streaming live on X, on Rumble, on YouTube, as always, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Good to see all of you guys on this Wednesday. What a crazy day. Nikki Haley suspending her campaign. Hallelujah. The neocons are dead. So now we officially kick into high gear, and we're going to look at the most important topic of the day, which is the U.S. border invasion, because we're learning more details, of course, about what the Biden administration has been keeping from us as it relates to the illegal border crossings and the hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens that are being ferreted around the United States in chartered aircraft that you are paying for. So we're going to talk about that in great detail tonight. We've got an amazing guest on the show tonight, former Customs and Border Protection agent who became a supervisor 24 years with the Customs and Border Protection. We're going to be joining with him in just a few moments.
And hey, the heyday of the war in Ukraine, which enjoyed great celebrity, now it seems like the writing is on the wall, and there are indications that that war is all but lost. Somebody tell Zelensky so that no more soldiers are sent to their death. We're going to bring you what we think are the death knolls of that war, which we think are painfully obvious to everyone but the neocons.
We're also going to look at the disaster unfolding in Haiti. This is a story the mainstream media is ignoring, but if they do cover the story, they will tell you that it's all gang violence and Haiti is a mess and we need to send in U.S. troops and intervene to stop all of this violence. But we're actually going to show you the truth about what's happening in Haiti and why the U.S. wants that country totally destabilized to take advantage of that country, to pillage its resources and its cheap labor and everything else. All of that and more as Redacted starts right now.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. It is Wednesday, middle of the week. Still a lot
Hump
of
day?
news. Yes.
Hump
day.
them if you got them.
Bad luck for Nikki Haley. Hey, that warmonger who Edward Snowden today called John Bolton in heels, or we called the Republican Hillary Clinton. Now she has suspended her campaign. So what does that mean for the Never Trumpers? What does that mean for the Democrats? We're going to see this unfold in an interesting way, I would say.
Yeah, it's, whatever few votes that she did have. I mean, usually you would try to court those individuals. Trump would get on the phone with her and say, hey, can I have your support now that you've got out? Can you encourage your voters to come over to me? He doesn't care about them because the people that voted for Nikki Haley are either they're never going to vote for Trump anyway, or they're liberals who voted for Nikki Haley in Vermont and Washington, D.C. So Trump doesn't need those people at all.
I want to think about that. I think that there are Nikki Haley voters that will go to Donald Trump.
They will.
Yes.
But he's not going to pander for it. Like, he's not going to beg those people. He's not going to call her up and say, can you, do some encouragement here and have those get on the phone and do a little rally. And
right. Yeah.
She's totally vilified.
I don't
him.
want to be reductive of Nikki Haley voters. I have to think most of them just thought that Trump was uncouth and they were looking for maybe, a better poster child for the presidency, but I would think that those people just have not studied her warring history.
Yeah, or they don't care, or
I don't think it's a coincidence. A coincidence that the people that could vote, I can't remember if it's a caucus or a primary, but Democrats can vote in those, and she got overwhelming, like higher support in where Democrats could vote versus just straight Republicans. And straight Republicans, she lost heavily.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Democrats in New Hampshire and the Democratic caucuses there, of course. And then how many, rhinos in Washington, D.C. who voted for her. Anyway, nevertheless, she's gone. Let's move past Nimrata. And now, really, the full election season begins now. I mean, this is the real deal, Holyfield. So here we go. Get ready for some craziness to unfold, if it's already not crazy enough for you. Anyway, we're going to talk about the U.S. border because, I don't think there's a bigger story that's of interest to the United States right now than what's happening at the U.S. southern border. And we are going to cover that story tonight in great detail.
So much so that we've allotted 2 segments. So it's almost like it's like a special.
It's like a special. Yeah, we've got a very special guest on that.
It's like a mini series, you guys.
In just moments. So good to see the thousands of you watching us over on X right now, which is great. Now that they've added video feed in the spaces, which is great. So good to see all of our friends on X who can watch us there now, which is great, instead of just audio. Okay. Before we get to our special guest on the U.S. border, it's almost springtime here, and that means time to plant some trees in your yard. We want to tell you about our friends over at fastgrowingtrees.com. I love this company. They're fantastic. Based on where you live in the country, they'll look at your zip code and you can choose different shrubs, different house plants, different outdoor plants, whatever you want, and they'll ship it right to your door, personally packaged and taken care of for you. And I got to say, we ordered a Japanese maple delivered right to our house, perfectly packaged, so you don't get dirt and everything all over your car. And then it was a beautiful Japanese maple that's grown tremendously, all from fastgrowingtrees.com. Really, really fantastic. And, it's amazing, because I was able to do this myself instead of having to hire like some really expensive landscaper or whatever to come in and try to do this, just do it myself. The experts at Fast Growing Trees curate thousands of plants so you can find the perfect fit for your specific climate, location, and needs. And here's what you need to do right now to get 15% off. Use the code Redacted at checkout. For a limited time only, you can buy one, get one free on their website. And you'll get an additional 15% off when you use the code Redacted at checkout. That's an additional 15% off. Go to fastgrowingtrees.com. Use the code Redacted at checkout. You're getting close to the perfect time of year to start planting something for your yard. Fastgrowingtrees.com. You can use the code Redacted. Offer is valid for a limited time. And tell them we sent you over at Redacted. Well, the scandal at the U.S. border is even worse than we could have possibly imagined. This week, we learned the U.S. government has been secretly flying illegal immigrants into the United States from their countries, destinations around the United States. Whatever cities you want to go to, they'll take you there, bypassing border security checkpoints, delivering them right into U.S. cities. And the only reason we know this is through litigation. They weren't forthcoming with this information. Donald Trump, during his victory speech on Super Tuesday, said the world is laughing at us.
We've watched our country take a great beating over the last 3 years. He's the worst president in the history of our country. There's never been anything like what's happening to our country. Today it was announced that 325,000 people were flown in from parts unknown. It's sad to see what's happening to our cities. Our cities are being overrun with migrant crime, and that's Biden migrant crime. But it's a new category of crime, and it's violent, where they'll stand in the middle of a street and have fistfights with police officers, and if they did that in their countries from where they came, they'd be killed instantly. They wouldn't do that. So the world is laughing at us. The world is taking advantage of us.
But the crisis at the border is far worse than we can even imagine. Those are the words of a former Customs and Border Protection Officer, J.J. Carroll, the author of the book called Invaded. And J.J. joins us now to break all of this down. J.J., welcome to the show. Glad to have you here for the first time.
Thanks for having me on. I think this is the biggest topic to discuss because it is the number one threat to our republic. It's not China, Russia, Iran, the Middle East. It is the intentional and strategic destruction of our immigration system. And it is happening in real time in front of us.
So you spent 24 years as a Customs and Border Protection officer. And you have, over that 24 years, I want to get into the specifics of the 320,000 being delivered, but over the course of that 24 years, what did you notice? Did you notice a total degradation of the border? Can you give me an idea as to why you decided to leave after those 24 years?
Did 24 years, and I was a frontline agent in the border down in T1 and San Diego sector, but I rose up to senior leadership. So I have a very unique perspective on what's going on. I can tell you exactly what's happening on the border, what it looks like, smells like, tastes like, who we're arresting, why the policies that are being used from top down. In 24 years, I went through Republican presidents, Democrat presidents, and it was kind of all the same. It's a uniparty issue. I was on a losing team, and I'm not a disgruntled federal employment officer. I am a very proud Border Patrol agent with the men and women that we secured the border under Donald Trump, the greatest border president. You don't have to like anything. You don't like his tweets, his hair, whatever. But he secured the border. We were within 6 to 9 months of having the border completely secured. Let me give you some example.
Wow,
At
6
the
to
end
9
of
months. 6 to 9
from having
months.
complete secure.
Wow. I've never heard that before.
And people say, well, that's not, how do you say that? Well, I'm not an academic looking out from the outside in. I was there. I was in the belly of the beast for 24 years, frontline. I know what happened. So what Donald Trump did is he shut the border down. Let me give you just data so you have put this in some context. At the end of Donald Trump's term, remember he fought for over 2 years with his own party to get funding for the wall and any kind of help to secure the border. Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, they sabotaged his whole thing. I watched it in real time. At the end of Donald Trump's term, we were arresting under Donald Trump 566 illegal aliens a day across the nation, northern border, southern border, coastlines. That's it. And we were deporting every single one. The moment Joe Biden came into office, 5,000 a day. 5,000. This invasion has been going on from the day Biden took office to now. And why you're asked the question, why did I leave? My last year in the Border Patrol as a deputy patrol agent in charge was Joe Biden's first year. I saw it coming down. I saw that freight train of treason pouring down in my face because for the first time in my whole 24-year career, we were doing things that we had never done before. So the Border Patrol has 100-year anniversary coming up in May. For 97 years, we never did what we're doing now under the 3 years under Joe Biden. Nothing. Clayton, there's not one thing that we're doing now that we did. We never released people. This is an anomaly. We never allowed special interest aliens to pour into our country and then release them into America. This is, just so I'm very clear, I am absolutely certain that this is intentionally done. It is strategically planned by Mayorkas. Joe Biden doesn't know what planet he's on. So Mayorkas is running this. And we are seeing the complete destruction of the immigration system, to use their words, to fundamentally transform America. And we're living in it.
Yesterday, Elon Musk tweeted that this is far worse than 9/11, that what they're planning is far worse than 9/11. This seems intentional, what's happening. And then, of course, we learned from the Daily Mail, this 320,000 illegal immigrants being flown by the United States government into cities of their choosing, using the Customs and Border Protection One app that on their phone, they just punch in where they want to go, basically, almost like you're booking a Southwest Airlines flight. And here the Customs and Border Protection, they'll fly you. But yesterday you were telling me, Clayton, this is far worse than anyone can even possibly understand. What we're hearing in the Daily Mail is one part of it. Can you explain, first of all, how is this possible? And then how is this worse?
Okay, so what they're doing, Center for Immigration Studies, CIS.org, it is unparalleled in the knowledge and the white papers they put out for immigration for decades. They did a FOIA request back prior to summer. And then in June and July of 2023, there was an anomaly in the arrest data. We were about 50 to 60,000 arrests lower than all the other months around it. And everybody that was in the business like I am went, hold on, time out. This isn't happening, not in the summer. This is the big months. And then the FOIA dropped. And CBP DHS responded to CIS.org and said, yes, in fact, we have released 221,000 illegal aliens, flew them into America. They didn't cross the border, get on planes and fly out, which millions are doing. United States of America flew them into America and released them into our airports. Now, Daily Mail now says that was in June, July, now says the number's about 332,000, okay? That's shocking on its own. But when you look at, there's a gentleman that runs a podcast called Monkey Works. I know it sounds crazy, but he does current events, has a huge following, but he follows, and this is very important, he follows and tracks airplanes coming into America, international and domestic flights. He just does it. This is his hobby, if you will. In December, he came out, and I have other data to prove this. He tracks Swift Air. What is Swift Air? They are under the name iAero Airways. Swift Air has been bought and sold in bankruptcy multiple times. However, Swift Air gets millions and millions and millions of dollars from the United States government under COVID and some other just insane stuff. But what is Swift Air doing? MonkeyWorks tracked in 2023, 7,280 flights into America from outside, mainly from South America, Latin America, and from other countries. They're using 737, so have about 200 people per flight, and they're flying illegal aliens into our country at the number, and his estimate guess is 1.4 million. So before everybody says, well, that's crazy, hold on a second. You just had the federal government fly in 331,000 illegal aliens literally in the dark of night, took it off their arrest database and hid it. And I'm telling you, no, that's just a portion of it. They just have not admitted to the other 1.1 million minimum that they have flown into America. So you have right now 11 million illegal aliens that have been arrested and then released on the border. Then you have another 1.4, 1.5 million that they have flown into America, illegal aliens. And you're right, they're using the CBP-1 app. Literally, I can use the same data, the same app that I make a reservation at my favorite restaurant. There's no vetting. And if you want to get even further into CBP-1 app, the Mexican drug cartels have hacked the geofencing in the CBP-1 app. So now the cartels control who's using the CBP-1 app. Do you think that the cartels are going to allow the American government to stymie their profit margin? Come on. This is so malicious.
So for our audience and for me, who aren't familiar with how exactly the cartels then would function and profit in this way, can you break that down for us? Obviously, you know this deeply, having been in Tijuana. Okay, you know how these cartels operate.
So first off, the audience needs to understand that no one crosses the border, no one, without paying the cartels. No one. When you watch these people pour over in the thousands, they have wristbands on, colored wristbands, to tell the cartels who owns who. Oh yeah, this is think of a giant Amazon Prime distribution center. Here they come into, like, say, Lukeville or Eagle Pass. Well, the cartels, they're working it.
How much money does it cost?
Eagle Pass. Well, it depends on where you come from. A Mexican national, maybe 1,000, 1,500. Maybe someone from Uzbekistan, 30,000. China, 40. It just depends on how far they have to travel and the risk involved of moving that person. Do they need to allow that individual just to cross the border and squat and get arrested? Or is this somebody as a known terrorist or somebody that is PLA soldier? Well, I'm going to have to move him through a car or something through the open border. So then the cost rises. But you talk about the CBP-1 app and how, so they have a geofencing. You can't get on the CBP-1 app and make a reservation to be let through the port of entry and be paroled in through asylum. So they hack that. So if I am, say I'm the smuggler in Tijuana or wherever or Brownsville, Texas, or here in the US, wherever, and you're from Uzbekistan, I'm going to sell you one of those 1,500 slots every day. Every day we bring in over 1,500 people and just blanket asylum. Go ahead, you're free to go, 1,500 a day, 44,000 to 45,000 a month that we just allow walk in, outside of everyone else that we do. So the cartels hack the geofencing. The guy from Uzbekistan, or Sudan, or Yemen says, I want to just get in America. Okay, well, you give me $40,000 and we'll put you in the CBP-1 app. We will fly you in, so as if you're in the northern part of Mexico, and then you walk into America. And I know that people hear this, and as I wrote my book, Invaded, there were times that I wrote stuff and I stopped and I reread it and I thought, no one's going to believe this. It is so insane, but everything is documented. Everything that I'm telling you today and that you're reading to me from the Daily Mail is true. It's happening.
Well, we have a saying on this show, conspiracy theories are just spoiler alerts for 6 months from now, right? Yes. So, and on this show, we don't believe in coincidences, right? So our audience is very smart, and they've been played. Our audience has been played, and they are sick and tired of being lied to. So now we have an app that's being funded by U.S. taxpayers, hacked by Mexican drug cartels, and every day they're flying these individuals in. So who's doing these flights? These are CBP pilots? Who's doing these flights, bringing these individuals into the United States? And then what sort of amenities are we providing these individuals? They get into Chicago or New York or other cities, St. Louis. Are we giving them money? We're giving them housing. What exactly then happens with the mechanics behind that?
Okay, so that is a very great question because no one's been able to truly get the data on this. But let me explain. So if you're overseas and you want to fly into America, you have to have a passport. If you're not a U.S. citizen, you need a visa, right? You have to have a visa to come into America. So we are flying in, don't even use MonkeyWorks. Let's just use the FOIA data. 331,000. 331,000 people flew into America without the proper immigration documents. They didn't have a visa. Some of them don't even have a passport. So how did they get on these planes? So the only intellectual argument we can have or deduction we can have is the federal government has to have worked with the airlines and said, you are going to allow everyone in. It doesn't matter if you have immigration documents or not, or they're using one company like Swift Air to fly them in, but that's just one airline. So does anybody remember 9/11? Does anybody remember hijacking planes and flying them into buildings? Are you telling me that the terrorist nations don't know that this is a weakness, that they could fly into, say, Ecuador, jump on a plane through the CBP One app and fly in to Chicago, Detroit, New York and fly planes in, hijack stuff? I mean, it's beyond rationality.
I mean, people need to wake up.
Talk about,
this is all orchestrated. There's no other way. Is it your assessment, JJ, that there's no other way this could be happening without the direct involvement of the U.S. government, the direct involvement and coordination of the U.S. government?
I absolutely believe that this is done intentionally. And I detail it in my book. When I have these discussions, and I'm sure you have with liberals and even rhinos, because this is a uniparty issue. And we have this discussion back and forth, and I say that it's intentional destruction, and they push back and go, well, I don't believe that. My response always is, the data is true. You agree that the data, it's on the website, it's DHS, CBP, it's all true. Everybody agrees it's true. If you don't believe that it's intentional, that they have done this strategically, then tell me what in the hell's going on. And there's always silence because there is no other explanation. Listen, if you were in Japan and you were a Japanese national and like a politician, and you had 10 million Chinese people, nationals, Taiwan, you name it, pouring into your country, do you think Japan or any other country would just sit back and go, all right, let's not do anything about it. Let's just allow it to happen? No other nation on planet Earth is doing this. Just look at the data. You're looking at every single day, on average, 7,000 to 20,000 people a day are pouring across our border. That's what we know about. And to put this into context, let's say the average is about 10,000, right? I will agree to that. 10,000. So every 10 days, the Rose Bowl in Pasadena is filled to capacity with individuals from 180 of 195 nations across the globe. And then on the 10th day at 12 midnight, I walk to the northern part of the Rose Bowl and I open the gates and I push everyone out into America. At the same time, my buddy in the Border Patrol opens the southern gate and I refill the Rose Bowl, another 100,000 in 10 days. And this is going on every 10 days. Now, this has to be discussed. There's 2,000 miles roughly of the southern border. At any given time, Clayton, 80% of the border is unmanned. meaning there's no Border Patrol agents. This has never been done. 1,600 miles of the border, no one's there. No one. So when the government tells you there's been 2 million getaways, people that cross the border undetected and absconded, that's a lie. Everyone in the business and knows that it's a 1-for-1 or a 2-for-1, meaning everyone that you arrest, another person gets away. It's probably double. But on a conservative estimate, another 10 million people cross the border undetected and absconded, on top of the other 10 to 11 million that have crossed the border, given up, and the Border Patrol's arrested. And we have about a 96, 97% release rate. We're not even holding. Everyone is released. Everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a special interest alien from a terrorist nation, you're a Chinese national military age men, all of the continent of Africa, all of the Middle East, they're all coming as single adult males, military age, and we're releasing them all. All. And the tentacles, like you and I have been talking for about 20 minutes, Clayton. There is so much going on right now in the border. We haven't even discussed drugs and the fentanyl pouring into America and destroying America. We're not talking about the largest child sex trafficking in the history of the world. 600,000 young children have crossed the border by themselves, and we have released them to sponsors in America with no follow-up. This is not only an intentional destruction of America, it is become a moral, sinful rot in America. And we are going to pay a heavy price.
I hope people wake up. I mean, I can't think of a bigger story in the United States. It's not Ukraine. It's not Iran. It's not, it's not our funneling of money into Israel, into Ukraine. And Vladimir Putin last week in that interview with Tucker Carlson said, don't you guys have anything better to do than get involved in a war in Ukraine? You have a border that's wide open. And when Donald Trump says the world is laughing at us, he's right about that. And you said something absolutely stunning to me, which is that we were 6 to 9 months away from having the border secured with only 500 individuals coming across the border. So, I mean, this has to be a targeted, intentional destruction of the United States with the sex trafficking, with the amount of people pouring across the United States border. I mean, I'll ask you a 30,000 foot level question to get you out of here, JJ. And I'd love to have you back more deeply. We can deep dive a lot of these topics. But why do you think they're doing this?
I absolutely, in the depths of my soul, believe that they are fundamentally transforming America, and they're doing it from the illegal immigration system. They destroyed it, and what they're trying to do is make a nation of non-citizens versus citizens. And you say, well, that's the replacement theory. Yes, that's their words. And the pushback on that, well, I'm a white man, that's a very xenophobic thing to say. This has nothing to do with race or ethnicity. We have 180 nations out of 195 nations on the globe are in our arrest data. So get rid of all the racism and xenophobic things that you want to hurl at me. Just for example, how the replacement theory in December, the United States Border Patrol arrested 372,000 individuals, not the getaways, just the arrest data. They released 359,000 into America. America's native births in the month of December were 302,000. We were at a 57,000 deficit between illegal foreign nationals and American births. And we have seen that through the census data all the way through. So we are bringing in people by the millions, and our birth rates are dropping. This is the replacement. Chuck Schumer says it. Joe Biden has said it out loud. Obama has said it. We are witnessing the complete destruction of America. And to go from a farther view and go down, how hard, if you wanted to reset America, do you want to fight me and guys like me that believe in the Second Amendment, have firearms, understand the Constitution, understand the Bill of Rights, understand that what the United States of America is a republic? Or is it easier to control people that are illiterate in their own language? 50% of them are illiterate in their own language. 100% of them, or 90-some%, have like maybe a 6th grade education, no skills, and they're 100% dependent on the U.S. government to survive. Is it easier to control men like me or people like that? And the answer is you can control them because they need you.
Right.
And we are being systematically replaced. And
building a system that you can control. Yeah.
Yes. And you're right. It's this, and you say, well, it's shocking about Trump. The greatest border president I ever worked for. He did things like he shut the Northern Triangle, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and then Mexico, and told them, stand up your border patrol, because they have border patrol, and or your military, and shut everything down. And they said no, because they were used to dealing with impotent presidents. And he said, okay, I remember this. I lived it. I was there. No. In one day, President Trump said, okay, no foreign money at all. Nothing. You get nothing. They need it from us. So they immediately said, yes, sir, we'll do what you want. And then like that, everything dropped. The border wall was 25% built, 25%. And we were down to 566 people a day. Do you know that 566 people a day across the nation is nothing? ICE was arresting thousands of people a day, and deporting massive criminals. And we're seeing the complete destruction of American citizenry from criminal elements that are coming through the border. Venezuela, just as we go at a 30,000 foot view, Venezuelans' murder rate is the lowest it's been in 22 years. Well, why is that? Well, they deported out of their nation, their own people, emptied all their prisons and insane asylums. And then when they're all here, Maduro tells Joe Biden just last week, hey, President, pound sand, we're not taking anyone back. No one that you arrest and you're going to deport, we're taking no one back. So, and Joe Biden said, okay. So we have the young lady in Georgia got murdered. That was a Venezuelan illegal alien that came across the border in El Paso in 2023, was arrested at least 4 times by NYPD and the PD in Georgia. And they just released him. So, but that's just one of endless streams of rapes, murders. We're looking at a El Salvadorian last week shot and killed a 2-year-old, murdered a 2-year-old with a gun. The rapes are off the chart. And this is what we just know about, right? How many other cases is the mainstream media vetting and pushing down so no one sees it? So this, from a 30,000 foot view, we're being replaced.
You're blowing my mind, JJ. And I'm sure our audience feels the same way. We need an absolute change right now at our southern border. We need a change in Washington right now. Like, this is a colossal crisis, a colossal existential crisis for the United States of America. J.J. Carroll, his book is called Invaded. And here's what I want everyone to do right now. Anyone who's watching, go to Amazon, buy this book, and let's make this the #1 book on Amazon right now, and share it. Take it to libraries, buy a copy of it, share it around, do whatever you can to get this message out right now so people are aware of the crisis that we're facing in this country. JJ, I'd love to have you back on the show. We can deep dive more of these topics. Of course, we've been covering the child sex trafficking very deeply here on this show. It's very important to us here at Redacted. And we can also, of course, cover the drugs that are flowing into the United States. But I just want to thank you for your time today and covering this flights angle of the story. There's so many different pieces of this. JJ, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, JJ. And I mean that, everyone, right now. If you write it down, you don't have to do it right now. Obviously, you're watching our show, but right after the show, go and grab this book.
Mark it on your Goodreads.
Go and grab it. It's called Invaded by J.J. Carroll. Go grab it on Kindle, grab it on Audible, grab it at your library. I don't care. But go and let's make this like a #1 book. And hopefully people will pay attention. And I know that Amazon loves to suppress books like this. They try to hide books like this. So let's see if we can get it in the libraries, buy an extra copy and take it to your library and donate it to the library so they can put it on file. And Philip, you used to work at Library System, right? So when people bring in books for donations, they put them in the system and they're available for people to use and read, right?
I assume so. I worked at a university system, which is a slightly different system. So that was sort of a Library of Congress sort of system. Yeah, it's different.
I volunteer in the library, and we like donation books.
Yes. So this isn't such an important topic.
Why don't you ask me? I currently work in libraries.
Okay, well, I know you work in our kids' school library, so I get that. But anyway, I'm trying to find, is there anyone here who works at a public library?
Disqualify me.
Is there anyone here who works at a public library? Is
count,
anyone here a doctor? Well, yes, I am, but I play one on television. Anyway, unbelievable. And thanks to JJ. I mean, just an absolute wealth of knowledge. I think it was really telling what he said. I was shocked, I was shocked by a number of things that JJ just mentioned. But the one thing that stood out to me the most, I think, was how under President Trump, and again, regardless of what you feel about Trump, I think he said it right. He's like, do you like his hair? Who cares? Under President Trump, they were down to 500 illegal crossings a day, and they would be apprehended and returned.
Yeah.
At the same time that was happening under Trump, ICE was also then going out throughout the country and locating the illegal aliens who were here, breaking the law, and then also being arrested and deported.
Right.
So we were then creating a negative flow. Now it's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Now we know that ICE is basically, their hands are tied and they're not doing anything right now, unfortunately. So let us know your thoughts on this in the comments below. We've got more news to get to here on your Wednesday. We're going to be looking at Ukraine. Because the President of the United States is about to hold the State of the Union address and basically pushing for more money for Ukraine at the same time that country is collapsing. And we're getting our clearest signs yet that it's over for Ukraine. We're not only Victoria Nuland resigning, the abandonment of that country, and we're getting exactly what we wanted, which is the total destruction of Ukraine, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians dead. That's exactly what the United States and NATO wanted, so we can turn it into a landing strip and a garrison for NATO. So we'll dive more into that story in a moment. But first,
we want to tell you about our friends over at Buy Optimizers, because are you tired of feeling tired? Do you always hit snooze and then slam your head straight back to the pillow? Well, with all the problems you have to take care of at work and home, your family, no wonder you feel tired. You got a lot. But if you really stop to think about who takes care of you, you might want to think about taking care of yourself with some magnesium. Magnesium Breakthrough is an all-natural supplement that helps you reduce fatigue and sleep more peacefully. It even strengthens muscle and improves your heart and brain function. While most magnesium supplements aren't full spectrum, Magnesium Breakthrough is the only magnesium supplement on the market that contains the optimal ratio of all 7 essential types of magnesium. So imagine having the strength and energy to get out of bed every morning and face your day courageously and boldly. What's the Jerry Maguire? I love getting up in the morning. I clap my hands and say, this is going to be a great day. So that too could be you. Check out Buy Optimizers right now. You can go to buyoptimizers.com/redacted and use the code redacted, and you'll unlock special offers. You'll be amazed how much better you feel. So again, 2 things to remember: buyoptimizers.com/redacted and use our code redacted. All right.
We had a few super chats in here. Thank you guys for your super chats on this Wednesday. We appreciate it. Let me see if I can grab any real quick here while we get set for our next story. Jay Shriver is a brand new member. The Gap Whisperer. The Gap Whisperer, because they make fun of our gap here. The Gap Whisperer.
Oh.
Psst, psst, table gap.
Are you sure?
Somebody said we should make our new, like, if we got a sponsor, we should call it, like, the promo code should be Table Gap.
Okay.
So yeah, when we put this table together, unfortunately, this is as close as it gets. But so it's now become a part of the show. Table Gap is its own person on the show.
I like the Gap because, again, this is my dance space.
And this is my space.
Your dance space. I don't want him to put stuff over on this side.
That's your DMZ. That's your DMZ right there.
Right. This is the South Korean North Korean border, by the way, where we have U.S. troops guarding.
So don't even think about putting a cup on that other side.
On our southern border. Armando Reyes says the Republicans are culpable, and so is the American voter. Yeah. I mean, if Joe Biden legitimately won an election, right? Joe Biden in a landslide, right? 80 million Americans voted for the guy, apparently. Mm-hmm. You know, it was the greatest blowout election in American history somehow. So Americans voted for the guy. Not you guys watching. So Americans now have to deal with this. And they've committed treason, as Armando says in our chat. All right.
All right. What if I just put this right there and we'll just get
absolutely
started?
Not. Get it over on your side of the table gap.
Okay.
Do not cross the gap.
Okay.
Right here.
It's a black hole. If I go over there, I'll get sucked right in.
Exactly. You'll become, the moment you enter this side of the table, you become a genius.
Oh.
So just stay over there.
You could put just a little tiny divider wall that would fit right in that crack, and to ease the mind of everybody that sees the crack. So just put like a little wall there.
Yeah. You know, we should put up plexiglass like COVID.
We could do that.
Just a plexiglass thing to...
I had this idea when we first got married, because Clayton steals the covers, that we should have a comforter with the line in the center so that he could see how far the line is over in the morning and how much he steals the covers. But I thought that would cause a lot of divorces. I think maybe that's not a great idea, you know?
Yeah. Maybe just do like Ricky and Lucy and have 2 twin beds.
Yeah, we may eventually get there. Who knows? All right, it's over. Let me try that again. Get serious,
So
Natalie.
you want to come over to this side of the table?
I should. I'll become a better broadcaster.
That's right.
It's over for Ukraine, and every day that we don't realize that, people are dying, and yet President Biden was planning to make Ukraine a key part of the State of the Union this week. We know this because he invited these 2 ladies. The one in the green is Ukrainian First Lady Elena Zelenska, and the one in black and white is the widow of Alexei Navalny. Her name is Yulia Navalnya. And they both were invited to the State of the Union, and the Washington Post today is reporting that both of them have declined. The president's office of Ukraine said that the First Lady didn't really decline as much as she had a scheduling conflict because she was scheduled to visit orphans, of course. Now, take a look. I know, hang on. Take a look at the statement. The Embassy of Ukraine in the United States has indeed recently received an invitation for the First Lady of Ukraine to attend the U.S. President's speech in Congress on 7 March. However, due to events added to the schedule earlier, including a visit to Kiev by orphans, unfortunately, the First Lady will not be able to attend. Now, I'm just wondering, do orphans have a super busy schedule they can't reschedule if the President of the United States, like if it were really important, you would think, I mean, I don't know, right?
Let me tell you this. If you want money, you want tens of billions of dollars.
You show up.
You show up to the State of the Union address when the President of the United States asks you to come as a special guest for the State of the Union address. This will be the last State of the Union address for President Biden ever, right? So this will be his final State of the Union address.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to win. So this is his final one. You come because you need tens of billions of dollars. But I love that. I'm going to use that excuse from now on. Can't come. I'm visiting orphanages this afternoon.
Now, of all the kinds of people in the world, I would think they would be one of the most flexible to reschedule things if you're orphans. I don't know. Maybe orphans are super busy these days.
I guess because, if we think her husband was responsible for their orphanaging, they've become orphans probably as a result of their husband, of her husband, right? We've had over 500,000 killed now in Ukraine thanks to her husband. So maybe she feels compelled to go and visit those individuals.
Right. Yeah.
Perhaps. Maybe that's just an idea.
Now over to Alexei Navalny's widow. Her name is Navalnya. She said, I would love to come, but I've been traveling a lot lately after the death of my husband, and I'm really tired. So I just got home, and it's basically I've already taken my bra off. I can't come. I would have, but once the bra is off, I cannot leave the house again. Now, the fact that the White House wanted the 2 ladies to sit together shows how... It's not a sexual innuendo. When you get home and you take your bra off, you're not leaving again. That's what that means. Like, your day's over. I'm not putting it back on and going back out of the house. Did that not land, you guys?
It landed.
Did you not?
It landed for me.
My socks.
I know that.
When I take my socks off, I'm not leaving. So,
okay.
Same thing.
That was not a come on, darling.
I see everything that way.
Okay.
So I'm like, it's good for me.
All right. In the chat, I apologize if that came off as a sexual reference. I didn't mean that. I just meant I'm in for the night. I've unbuttoned my pants. Again, no. Clayton.
Stop while you're ahead.
All right. The fact that the White House wanted these 2 ladies to sit together just shows how little the U.S. knows or cares about Russian or Ukrainian politics. Sure, both of their husbands either see or saw Putin as an enemy, but that does not mean they are on the same side. They just know, the White House knows that most Americans don't know that. So they wanted the optics. Now, just a reminder, Navalny supported the annexation of Crimea and was decidedly not pro-Ukraine. He also was aligned with extremists, race extremists, and Olena Zelenska probably wants to avoid looking like that is her platform too, or she supports it. So yeah, she chooses the orphans over the three branches of U.S. government, probably a better bet. Now, another lady ditching Ukraine is Victoria Nuland, lead dementor at the State Department. Her official title was U.S. Deputy Secretary of State. You know how I feel about her, but I would like to posit that some of the conversation about her is a little bit sexist. This is not me defending Victoria Nuland. I cannot do this. But take a look at some of this type of information that's been running around on Twitter, that when she first entered government and when she left, and how she just looks evil.
Evil transformed you, it says, yeah.
Yeah, I just bring this out because I'm a little uncomfortable with the appearance jokes that hint that middle-aged women look evil. I don't know, is that like a hit at middle-agedness, or is that just her? Do we care to discuss that?
I don't care to discuss that. She is an evil demon that I hope, I mean, those images represent demonhood. Like, she's grown, she's
probably
metastasized
still was a
into
demon when she was young. Like, or did she become demon? I don't know. I just was wondering if that's a little bit of hag baiting. And you guys discuss amongst yourself.
It's fair. Okay, as a woman, you can say that. I don't know. I think she's a demon, and I think that that's what evil does to you. I mean, her whole soul has been sucked out of her. She's given her life over to the death and destruction of other human beings.
Yes.
So I would think that's you turn into Voldemort, as you know, as
she's Horcruxed herself into an ugly soul.
Exactly.
Yes.
She's a Dementor.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Here is Glenn Greenwald giving a synopsis of her how she just failed up in her political career. It's almost like a linear equation that more deaths equaled more promotions for her. Watch.
Just imagine you are one of the leading advocates for the war in Iraq, promising that there's all this success in the war in Afghanistan, and then demanding NATO be expanded into Eastern Europe up to the border, including Ukraine, and be used as a tool for regime change operations, including in Libya. You have all these bloody disasters on your plate. And American public opinion is against all of them. You would think somebody's reputation and credibility in Washington would be crippled as a result of advocating so many destructive policies that resulted in the deaths of so many people unnecessarily, for reasons that completely backfired on American interests as they were defined at the time. But that's not how Washington works, ever. Jeffrey Goldberg got caught spreading crucial lies using the pages of The New Yorker, promoting the idea that Saddam Hussein was in alliance with al-Qaeda, which led 70% of Americans to conclude that Saddam Hussein had participated in the 9/11 attacks, which got them to justify and support the invasion of Iraq. He got journalism awards for spreading that lie on behalf of the U.S. security state. And as we know, he now occupies the position of editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. And he also just got promoted by having a PBS show given to him that has long been called Washington Week. So he's advanced. The more he's lied, the more bloody wars Victoria Nuland is involving herself in and advocating and cheering and justifying, the more she advances in bipartisan Washington. It doesn't matter. You could have gone to the polls in 2008 and voted for John McCain. You could have gone to the polls and voted for Barack Obama. And Victoria Nuland would have ended up running things for the State Department. Not only despite all these things she did, but precisely because of them.
Yeah. Tank Reeves in the chat, thank you for your super chat, says she is Darth Nuland. Now, Ukraine had been her baby. This was Nuland's war. Not only did she have a part in the overthrow of the government in 2014, which we're going to look at in a second, but she was just there at the end of January trying to, again, drum up support, telling them that the U.S. would continue to give them weapons. She's the one who installed the puppet government in Ukraine after the coup in 2014. Now, there was a leaked phone call of her planning this where she said, F-word the EU. not F word, but the real F word. And she proceeded to talk to the U.S. ambassador in Ukraine about, hey, we're going to change this government and we're going to do it our way. Europe will not be involved. Here's how we should do it. I remind you of this audio by playing it for you right now.
I don't think Cleach should go into the government. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a good idea.
In terms of him not going into the government, just let him sort of stay out and do his political homework and stuff. I'm just thinking in terms of sort of the process moving ahead, we want to keep the moderate Democrats together. The problem is going to be Tony Book and his guys. And, you know, I'm sure that's part of what Yanukovych is calculating on all of this.
I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy, you know, what he needs is Cleach and Tony Book on the outside. He needs to be talking to them 4 times a week, you know. I just think Cleach going in, he's going to be at that level working for Yatsenyuk. It's just not going to work.
There is a suggestion for Nuland to contact Klitschko directly to play to his top dog sensibilities, while Nuland refers to getting the United Nations involved in a political solution. And that's where the unfortunate comment arises.
I'm obviously not going to comment on private diplomatic conversations, other than to say it was pretty impressive tradecraft. The audio was extremely clear.
It was so good. It was a good recording. How'd they get that?
So, I mean, and she basically, points out exactly that it was spot on and it was accurate. Mm-hmm. It was crystal clear.
Yeah.
So somebody absolutely recorded it.
Right.
And of course, you know, she had to later apologize. She had to apologize to Chancellor Merkel, Angela Merkel of Germany, for saying F the EU.
Yes. And, you know, she is the one who's been telling us that they're supporting democracy in Ukraine. Well, she is single-handedly voting for who gets to be president there. That's not a democracy. She shouldn't get to choose. That's overthrowing foreign governments. You are not supposed to do that. And how has that gone for us? Well, we got a pro-Western Ukrainian government that continued to attack the Donbas region, even though we had an agreement that they wouldn't. We never bothered to stop them. That led to the war that we are in now, and people are dying. And here's another sign that things are not going great in Ukraine, and maybe we should stop funding this war. All of our stuff is being blown up. Take a look at this. This is an M1 Abrams tank sent to Ukraine by the U.S. This is in Russian Donbas area, and Russia says they blew it up this week. And RIA, which is Russian state media, released this footage. We paid for that. Up in smoke. Okay. It's not fun to see that, knowing your tax dollars have paid for it and elected representatives want to send more. So here is another video of U.S. HIMARS being destroyed on the battlefield. Again, this is in Donbas. Now, the music here is a little bloodlusty for my taste, or maybe we're not going to.
I pulled the music. I pulled the music.
Okay, we're not going to because it's a little like
heavy metal,
Top Gun-ish, sort of glorifying this, and so great. Okay, I don't have to make excuses for that. Now, again, this is all stuff that our politicians are saying we need more, but Lloyd Austin, Defense Secretary, is making the good point that this is good news for the U.S. economy, because if they blow it up, we make money selling more. He says this is an economic bonanza. He says these investments have expanded facilities and created jobs for American workers, and the weapons that we've sent to Ukraine to help defend itself are made in America by American workers nationwide, from Texas to Ohio to Arizona. So giddy up. And one other indication that the war is looking hopeless for Ukraine, they are striking inside Russia where the war is not. Take a look at this. Ukraine has launched several drone raids targeting facilities in Russia's 3 regions that are well above the battlefield. So what you're looking at, again, if we could just keep this up for a long time, the Donbas region from the dark gray line over to the end of the red line is the contested region. Those are regions where the mayors asked Russia to come in and defend them from continuous attacks from the Ukrainian army in 2022. And Russia voted to comply with those requests. And that's when the West tells us that they came in for an unprovoked invasion, which it was not. And so the battle lines there are where the red begins. So you see all of those sort of blasts in blue, yellow, and red. That's indicating who's blasting who. But then look where Ukraine has been striking. I circled them in red. Way outside battlefield. That's not battlefield territory. They're playing dirty. Why are they doing that? Is because they cannot move that territory back. They can't push Russia back. Those people there don't want it. And if they do succeed at that, then the people who live there will once again be vulnerable to all of those continuous attacks that Victoria Nuland said was just fine. Now, just a few days ago, Florida Senator Marco Rubio said, we've known all along that Ukraine can't win this. I just didn't really want to say it because I was trying to be a company guy, basically. Not before telling lies about Putin's aim to take over all of Ukraine. But watch him admit that, yeah, it's the lost cause.
Sure to do that. Here's what I do know. There is no way that the Russian Federation takes Ukraine, all of Ukraine, half of Ukraine. And that was Putin's goal from the beginning, was to carve it up into at least half the country, including Kyiv. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. On the other side of it, the reality of it is that Ukraine is small compared to Russia in terms of size and its ability to bring scale, its ability to force conscript people. So neither I'm just being honest. And in the past, I have tried not to talk about this publicly because I thought it undermined the leverage that Ukraine had. But now it's the reality. Neither side is going to be able to achieve victory as defined in the most idealistic terms.
So brave of you to say that now, after so many people have died. Also, he's lying. Putin's goal was never to take half of Ukraine. It was only in compliance with those mayors of those regions who invited them to come in militarily. Russia is not force conscripting people. Ukraine is doing that. Have you missed that one? But he is telling the truth that Ukraine can't win. And the West should support a peace agreement. That's me saying this. He wouldn't say those words because he's a coward. With the territory that it is now so that no one else has to die. But you know what will eventually die is the media star of Zelensky. This headline and image made me laugh. Zelensky would lose election, according to a poll. It's the image there that makes me chuckle because he's like, who cares? I've outlawed elections anyway. Doesn't matter. That's one of those things, That wasn't a good Zelensky.
Wait a minute.
I'm not good. Yeah.
I thought the U.S. was spreading democracy there. What? And they canceled elections. Is that the beacon that we're trying to put out there now?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah. We're okay with that.
Yeah, that's democracy.
Now, this pollster Socis, S-O-C-I-S, recently had polls showing that Zelensky would lose to General Valery Zaluzhny. But the poll also showed that the majority of Ukrainians, I think it's 65%, did believe that elections should not be held right now during the conflict. That smells super fishy to me. I would think that Ukrainians who see death and destruction around them would really be motivated to vote on this outcome of the war.
I totally trust polls by the Ukrainian government.
Sure. Well, it's not the Ukrainian government. It's a Ukrainian pollster.
I totally trust pollsters from Ukraine.
But you can't pick and choose. Do you trust that Zelensky would lose an election, or do you trust that they don't want an election?
I don't trust any polls.
You don't trust either parts of those things.
No, he would be destroyed in an election.
Mm-hmm.
He is absolutely reviled in Ukraine. So I don't really give a rat's ass what a poll says, but there's no way that he would win an election. That's why you canceled elections.
Right. And I would think that Ukrainians want a vote now.
Yeah.
Like yesterday.
Yeah. Hey, all of our husbands are now dead. So we don't have 2 votes in our house anymore. We have 1. But if we could vote, we would want this war to end right now.
Yeah.
But you're not going to hear that.
Well, yeah, because that 60% number totally negates what they just said. Like, they don't want Zelensky anymore. But you know what? Since we're in this conflict.
But we want him for now.
We want him for now.
Yeah.
Like, that makes no sense.
It doesn't make any sense, right? But I think that these are cracks in his star because his day as a media darling is ending.
Yeah.
So.
Unbelievable. All right. Well, I guess you won't come to the State of the Union address. You've got better things to do, like going to orphanages. We've got more news to get to. We're going to talk about Haiti in a moment. This is a really important story that the mainstream media totally ignores this story, and they're lying to you about it. You might have seen some headlines over the past few days about a massive prison break in Haiti. Thousands of gang members released onto the streets, and it's chaos. So we better send in U.S. Special Forces. We better send in U.S. troops. We better get some sort of U.S. allies on the ground, boots on the ground, to invade that country immediately. That's the message we're hearing. So we're going to get the truth on what's actually happening in Haiti. But first, we want to tell you about our friends at the Wellness Company. The government is lying to you. There's a shock. They always are lying to you. And as we know, the government's goal is dependency and control of our lives. Close to 90% of pharmaceuticals in the United States are produced outside of the United States. So what happens when the next global crisis strikes? What happens when, China decides that Americans shouldn't get its shipments anymore? What happens when shipments coming through the Straits of Hormuz or right through the South China Sea can't make it to the United States anymore? Well, that's because America has gone globalized, right? Bill Clinton, we really wanted to turn all of our manufacturing over to China and other parts of the world. And guess what? Americans' medicine shelves and pharmacy shelves will be empty as a result of it. But not if the Wellness Company has anything to do about it. They want you to be prepared. The Wellness Company's medical emergency kit holds 8 life-saving medications that every American should keep in their medicine cabinet. Right now, it's like having a doctor at home. We're talking meds like amoxicillin, ivermectin, Z-Pak, plus a 22-page guidebook. We have antivirals in there, antiparasitics. By the way, have you guys been reading? Do you guys want to dive deep into and understand what's happening with cancer and the antiparasitics and the story and the studies about antiparasitics that have been suppressed? You should look into it, guys. Look into it if they're trying to force certain things on you. Anyway, from tick bites to COVID to extreme bioterror events, every scenario is covered with this wellness kit. These prescription emergency kits are in huge demand right now. Head over to the website on your screen, twc.health/redacted, and get 10% off at checkout. Grab these before they're gone. Keep them in your house. Just have it on hand as an emergency. I saw one of our prepper friends who has a big social media following said, people slam preppers all the time. He's like, what they don't understand is they're ignorant. He said, we're not some crazy conspiracy theorists out there. What we're doing is we're just protecting our family, making sure we have supplies on hand when stuff hits the fan, because it's going to, and it will. We've already been through it over the past few years. You know what it's like. So go to twc.health/redacted. Use the code redacted to save 10% at checkout. You should have these in your house. Antivirals, antibiotics, antiparasitics, amoxicillin, ivermectin, and a Z-Pak right there in the wellness kit. So be safe, be prepared, and stay well. Thanks to the Wellness Company for supporting Redacted. Well, Haiti is under a state of emergency at this hour as the country's gangs have freed thousands of people from prisons and are reportedly trying to bring down Haiti's unelected Prime Minister, Ariel Henry. Dan Cohen from Uncaptured Media, of course, has been covering Haiti like no other and joins us. He just actually returned from Haiti, where things have gotten a little out of hand. But I did, air quotes for gangs, Dan, because there is the story that the media tells us about what's going on in Haiti, and then there's the truth, which is, of course, what you have uncovered. What is going on in Haiti right now?
Yeah, I think it's appropriate to use those air quotes on gangs. There are real gangs, but the real gang are the ones running the country at the behest of the U.S., and that's what we're seeing a long-term sort of popular uprising coalesce right now in the rejection of the interim prime minister, who I think is now the longest serving prime minister in Haitian history, Ariel Henry, basically being rejected by the country. So essentially what's going on is Ariel Henry left about a week ago to go to Kenya. And in Nairobi, he has signed a an agreement with the Kenyan government to send in basically what amount to death squads. I did an investigation at Uncaptured Media on these. They call them Kenyan Police Special Forces, but these are straight up death squads that have a extremely horrific track record inside their own country. And so the US has been seeking a military intervention in Haiti, but doesn't want to do it itself because they know that the Haitian masses would reject it because of the history of bloody U.S. interventions in the past. And so the U.S. has been seeking other countries, has tried every single way, ram it through the United Nations, through CARICOM, and finally got the Kenyans, apparently through a hefty bribe worth hundreds of millions of dollars, to agree to send 5,000 police special forces, as I said, death squads.
It's amazing, right? Because, yeah, all of these other countries, like, no, we're not sending troops, we're not sending forces, we're not doing. So how in the world did the United States manage to bribe them? Like, what was the bribe here to get them to send thousands of people?
Yeah, hundreds of millions of dollars to this incredibly corrupt Kenyan government that is basically a landing strip for the United States, and in the region of Africa, that it's in is a top U.S. ally. So, and has participated in all kinds of interventions throughout Africa, and even in Yugoslavia in previous decades, and so it's a dependable kind of regime for the United States in Africa. And they figure, well, we can get basically a black face on this American intervention in Haiti. That's the idea. However, that has met some legal hurdles in Kenya, namely because there has to be a bilateral agreement with the government of Haiti, and the government of Haiti is unelected. So they're trying to ram it through anyway. Prime Minister Ariel Henry goes to Kenya to get this thing signed. And now that he's out of the country, what's happened is these armed groups, some of which are criminal in nature and are fair to call gangs, and some of which are not criminal in nature, and we've profiled extensively, here on Redacted. These armed groups have a sort of non-aggression pact, I think is the best way to describe it. And so what they've done is gone and occupied the airport in Port-au-Prince, which basically means that Ariel Henry cannot come into the country and cannot land. And at this point, I don't think anyone even knows where Ariel Henry is. So this is the main thing they're trying to accomplish, is keep Ariel Henry out, this unelected tin pot dictator controlled by the United States, to keep him out. Inside the country, you have this non-aggression pact between these armed groups, and these armed groups are who carried out this raid on the prison, freeing thousands of prisoners. And now I just want to kind of help people understand, what is this non-aggression pact? Who are the gangs? Who are the other armed groups? So we have profiled extensively a guy named Jimmy Cherizier. His nickname is Barbecue, who is a former Haitian police officer who was basically burned by the system and became a quote-unquote outlaw. And he founded a group called the Revolutionary Forces of the G9 Family and Allies, and which basically sought to unite armed groups against the criminal armed groups. And so for years, for about 4 years, the G9, led by Cherizier, has been fighting against these gangs, these criminal gangs that kidnap, that rape, that murder, and really terrorize the population. He came to a point where he was unable to fight them and actually really defeat them, because there are so many and they are heavily armed and funded by the elites in Haiti who are tied to the US. So what he did is he decided, look, I'm not able to defeat them, so I'm going to have a sort of non-aggression pact with them. And that was created last year in something called Vivre Ensemble, living together. Is what it means in Creole. And so Vivre Ensemble is very fraught. There have been groups that have come in it and come out of it. But basically, Cherizier has tried to keep this non-aggression pact together to focus on getting rid of Ariel Henry. And then once Ariel Henry is out, then they can kind of, determine what happens next. So it's basically, it's really it's a gamble for Cherizier, who I believe in what he is trying to do, in the sense that he wants to improve the conditions of his country. So, people aren't living in literal sewage. But he's had to essentially make a deal with the devil in order to defeat a larger devil. So what happens now is anyone's guess. It's a very kind of unstable moment.
It's fascinating because as you've posted on X, we see, these incredible images of him speaking, Jimmy Cherizier speaking to thousands of people in Haiti. And for the first time, I'm seeing him wear a suit and tie instead of sort of like military fatigues. And he's it seems like he's trying to bring these people together to rise up against these imperialists who are trying to take over our country, the United States, the United Nations, who are trying to come in here and exploit our people and trying to, it seems, get these individuals whom the United States has had in their back pockets for a long time on his side, saying, maybe stand with Haiti rather than the imperialists, the United States. It's a tall order. What's your sense of whether or not he can pull this off?
It's anybody's guess, really, at this moment. I mean, those armed groups that has this non-aggression pact with are dangerous. They're killers. But whether he can convince any of them to change their ways remains to be seen. Whether he has to end up fighting them as he was before, and has been for years. That's a big question. And he has been fighting some of them. This whole Vivre Ensemble non-aggression pact, like I said, has been very fraught. For example, he lives in a neighborhood called Lower Delma, which he is basically responsible for. And he, for years, fought the next neighborhood over called Bel Air, led by a guy named Kempes Sanon, who is an unrepentant kidnapper. Now he has a non-aggression pact with him. Does that mean they're allies, they're at peace? No, it just means they're currently not shooting at each other, not, killing each other. But he has, Barbecue, the G9, has been fighting against other groups from a few streets over. And that was happening when I was there with Kim Ives of Haiti Liberté just about 2 weeks ago. So we see that this is very... I keep saying the word fraught. It's the best way to describe it. It's extremely fraught. It's unknown how it could develop. And he's at the same time, actually, that he has been making these non-aggression pacts with these different armed groups. Those armed groups have actually still been attacking other neighborhoods. And what Barbecue has been doing is taking in the victims from those neighborhoods and allowing them to take shelter inside his neighborhood, allowing them to set up markets, which is basically how they survive, by selling, in informal markets on the street. So it's just a totally fluid situation that could just go any way.
Do you get the sense that the United States meddling, or the United Nations meddling in this, is subsiding, or is this sort of a catalyst moment where you're about to see a lot more nefarious, I don't want to say boots on the ground, but money flowing in, arms flowing in, meddling flowing in all of the ways that the U.S. manages to meddle and we don't see it in the open air?
I mean, it's no secret that the arms come from the U.S. and have been for quite a while, whether through official or unofficial means. I mean, Florida has very lax gun laws. It's easy to get guns out and smuggle them in to Haiti. So that has been going on for quite a while. I mean, I think the U.S.'s overall strategy is really faltering. They haven't been able to convince many countries to go in. Even with Kenya has said they would contribute 5,000 police. Benin, which is in West Africa, recently announced that they would contribute 1,000 police. The Bahamas, a few other countries have said they would contribute, very small amounts, which are more symbolic than anything. But it's really not enough to be able to accomplish what the U.S. wants, which is to basically go in and root out these, so-called gangs. First of all, just the number of forces. I think you want, maybe a 5-to-1 ratio of foreign troops going into these neighborhoods where the locals, of course, have the advantage. It's like the Americans going into Vietnam or something. You're going against people who know the terrain, who speak the language, who can blend in, with the civilian population, with the public, and they just kind of appear and disappear and this kind of thing. So it's really a bad situation for any Kenyan or any Kenyan police officer to be going into these slums in Haiti trying to, also they don't even speak the language. In Kenya, they speak English and Swahili, but they don't speak Creole. They don't even speak French. So they're going to be totally clueless. And basically it's just not it's not a very strong recipe. It's not a strong plan for a success of any kind of intervention. So I think the U.S.'s strategy overall is very half-baked. And the idea of just keeping Ariel Henry in there indefinitely is obviously not working either. So I think, at least from what I can see, they don't have any really good answers for this situation that they've created through multiple coups d'etats against the popular elected president of Haiti, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, in the 90s, and then again in the early 2000s, the gutting of the state, the assassination of the president, Jovenel Moïse, in 2021. It's just the U.S. has abused Haiti in every way possible and exploited its labor in such extreme ways and shaped it. And now it's got this mess on its hands that it's trying to, stuff back into, but it just doesn't have a good way, is what I see.
Wow, there's a long track record of the United States doing that in multiple countries. Destabilizing these countries through assassinations, coups d'etats, and then realizing they've made a massive mess and then trying to stuff that genie back in the bottle. I could run down a laundry list of those countries. So, Haiti under a state of emergency at this hour. Look what the United States hath wrought. Dan Cohen, I encourage everyone to go over to check and go to his YouTube channel, go to Uncaptured Media, whether on YouTube or Rumble, and watch the new documentary that you've just done there and all of your coverage of Haiti. And so some great journalism over there, as always. Dan, great to see you.
Thank you, Clayton.
Thanks so much, Dan. Thanks to all of you guys for being a part of our show here on this Wednesday. Thank you guys so much. I should mention we have a Plus Club. If you'd like to join and support what we do here at Redacted, we are not supported by billionaires. We are supported by you. And if you, for the price of a cup of coffee once a month, want to come over and support independent journalism, you can join our Plus Club, where we have exclusive content, interviews that you won't see anywhere else, that are only shown to you, and then released later to the masses, and content that's only there available to you. For the price of a cup of coffee once a month, you can sign up. Just go to redacted.inc and support what we do here. It's our private locals community. If you're on Rumble watching right now, you can just click the red button, the Join Redacted Plus. If you're on YouTube, just come over to redacted.inc, and then you can, again, sign up. We've got a great community of people over there, and we just had a meeting today about what can we do in our Plus Club to really bring some additional value to you as well. So that is our goal, to bring as much value as we can here on the show for free every day. But again, if you'd like to support what we do a little bit extra, you can do that at redacted.inc and join our Plus Club. We will be back here tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So hopefully you guys can join us on a Thursday as we look at what's happening in this world right now, what's happening in this country as this border invasion continues, and will anything stop it? We are watching this very, very closely, and I think it's arguably the most important story of our time. And it's going to be the most pivotal moment in U.S. history, I think, what happens over this next year with the U.S. border and the tens of thousands, millions of people pouring across the U.S. border. So we're going to continue to watch that much more closely over the next couple of months. Anyway, we'll be back here tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, guys. Hope you guys have a great night. We'll see you then.